Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Next what we do, oh, by the way, your board on the last meeting approved us to say the Pledge of Allegiance before our meetings. So this is new, so if we can, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Martin, would you lead us in that pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next is introductions. What we'll do, we want to go around and let everyone introduce themselves and tell us what role you play in Camden County. My name is Lance Stigley. I'm the current director of your Camden County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition.
John Barker, I'm the Middleton Seal Electric here in the county.
Thea Prince. I've been working with the county in solid waste.
I'm Carrie Strauch. I work with the Regional Health Office in Cookville, but I cover health education here in Camden County.
Kristen Jones, I'm the consumer science agent at UG Extension.
Sarah Farrell, I work for UT Extension in the 4-H Youth Development Program.
I'm Travis Maddox. I'm active with the Lions Club and the Senior Citizens Center here in Mark.
Jessica Duncan, I'm misdemeanor probation officer for the county.
All right.
I'm Keith Reddy with the Cannon Courier.
Thank you.
I'm Kurt Darby, representing Woodbury Church of Christ.
Jerry Barrett, Stones River Recovery, Alcohol and Drug Rehab.
I'm Brian Reeves, Public Relations Coordinator for Stones River Recovery.
My name is Miller Rodriguez. I am the VP for Stones River Recovery.
Thane Carl, I'm a concerned citizen.
Maria Jordan, co-director of the Prevention Coalition of Bedford County.
We're happy to have you here.
Thanks.
You folks are new as well, aren't you?
What's that?
You folks are new as well.
Yeah, about 7 months old.
Appreciate you being here.
My name's Thomas. I'm with Celebrate Recovery on the team leader, and we're there for people with addictions that have to overcome.
I'm Brent Bush, and I'm with the current county executive.
I'm Sadie Slaney. I represent the National Guard Counter Drug Task Force.
I'm Shannon Tucker-Bone. I'm a concerned citizen, and also I'm here to represent Jesse Tucker-Bone.
I'm Elizabeth House, and I'm the current coalition secretary.
And
I'm Pam Stacy, the events coordinator for the coalition.
very good. Appreciate all of you being here today. I mentioned just a moment ago that it's very easy. We have found that it's very easy to underestimate the value of coalitions. Those of you who have been involved in coalitions have an understanding of how they work and what they can provide for the community. And of course, we want everyone to understand that this coalition is here in the county to help the substance abuse in this county. Along with that, for the county to be healthier. This started out as just a small project, it snowballed and got completely out of hand. And this is what we have now. But be sure and participate in these meetings, because this belongs to Camden County. This doesn't belong to any individual or group. This belongs to Camden County. Several of you folks have already heard this. I've already made this spiel, but I'm going to do it right now before I introduce Lieutenant Swain. Anytime this nation has a crisis, and I was meeting with the city police chief yesterday, and we indeed have a crisis, drug crisis in this county. No one knows that any more than our law enforcement, our first responders, probably the probation department here. And it costs all of us. But anytime this nation has a crisis, it doesn't matter whether it's a hurricane comes up and wipes out half the East Coast, whether there's wildfires, group it up in the West, or rash of tornadoes coming up the Midwest, or whether it's flooding in Louisiana, or an immigrant crisis at the border wall, who is one of the first that our nation sends in to assess and give direction on that? It's the National Guard, our National Guard. They're here. They are here to help us and assist us with this crisis that is plaguing our county. What we want to do is give them the opportunity to do what they do best, and that is assess the situation, put together a plan of environmental change, and bring it back and implement it. This doesn't mean that they're here to take care of the problem. That's not their problem. It's our problem. It's up to us to take care of this problem with the resources that are going to be provided for us through the state and federal grants and resources. I'd like to introduce to all of you Lieutenant Sadie Swaney from the Tennessee National Guard Counter Drug Task Force.
Hi, everybody. I feel like I'm supposed to walk onto a stage after that introduction. I see a lot of familiar faces. I probably saw many of you at the last coalition meeting. And today, so I've talked to Pam and Glenn and the board, and we've come up with kind of a plan for what we want the next 6, 8, 10, 12 months to look like for the coalition. Kind of big picture ideas. What direction do we want to take it? What kind of activities do we want to do? And overall, like, what is the purpose? Because at this point, we have the people in the room, and the people who aren't in the room supporting us. It sounds like there are people that have some private and like financial interest in seeing this coalition have some success. So every county is different, and the background that I come from is I work usually, if any of you have seen me before, I'm in a uniform. Today, I didn't do that because I was feeling crazy, and I knew my boss wasn't going to be here, and I have a dentist appointment after this. And as many of you can guess, when you're in a certain type of uniform, people will like do back handsprings to thank you for your service, which is very appreciated, unless you're like trying to pump gas or just go to the dentist. So, thank you for letting me be here in like comfortable clothing, and know that everything I say and do is on behalf of the National Guard. I work for the part of the National Guard called the Counter Drug Task Force. And there's a couple different subsections. Part of my office works on eradication, meaning getting rid of the drugs, figuring out who the drug dealers are. My part of that office and my team work on, we have like I call it a lens of prevention. So half my office is handling kind of the damage that's already been done. My half of the office is working on prevention and how can we, at least in my lifetime, I don't know that we will end it totally, but how can we slow things down? And the solution that the President and the Adjutant General of the Army decided was prevention is important, and we cannot arrest our way out of a drug problem, which many of you have probably heard. So my team, we consider ourselves kind of on the ground in the communities. I can't go out and wait for you all to walk out of Kroger and be like, listen, please tell your loved ones that drugs are bad, don't do drugs. But what I can do is use the resources and tools that I have to kind of empower you all to take action in your own community. I live in Montgomery County. I live in a little tiny place kind of like Woodbury called Cumberland Furnace. It's right outside Clarksville. And we have similar problems to Cannon County, but something I've learned over the last year is what's happening in Montgomery County and Bedford County, Coffee County, Clay County, maybe similar, but kind of a couple of degrees different across the state. So there is no one best plan. It's not like if everyone does this step-by-step guide, then the whole state is going to be drug-free and no one's ever going to have their feelings hurt again. Unfortunately, I'm waiting for that plan to drop into my email box, but unfortunately we don't have that. So My hope is that we can come up with a plan together that fits your county and your people, your citizens, that works for you. And there are some best practices of things that other counties across the state are doing that are working. We'll try some of those. But before we can even pick a problem, we need to do what's called a community assessment. Is anyone familiar with what a community health assessment is? Yeah. Okay, so I want to be really forthcoming with this. I call it a community assessment because that's what I'm told to call it. I would prefer to call it a coalition county assessment. So a community health assessment, as you all know, is sometimes like St. Thomas Hospital recently did one in a county I'm working in, and they encompass all kinds of stuff. They want to know like everything from who's smoking cigarettes to who is running out of insulin to like they want everything in the whole world of health. I don't make enough money or have enough staff to do that, so what we're going to do is a smaller, more condensed version of a community health assessment that is all around Cannon County and prevention. We're a prevention-focused coalition, so rather than asking like, what is every single problem going on in the county, we're going to say, let's identify the problems that exist in Cannon County only as we know them. And my hope is that we can use some qualitative and quantitative data, kind of your opinions and life as you know it, combined with some local data, smack it together and come up with a data-driven decision about what we think the problem is that we want to tackle. For some counties, that problem might be marijuana. For some counties, that problem might be methamphetamine. For my county, Montgomery County right now, it is fentanyl is a big problem. And that's probably statewide, but particularly if you look at Montgomery County on the map, that thing is red. I'm like, oh no, I live there. People are like, want me to fix the problem? I'm like, oh. So, any solutions you guys have, I'm kind of spreading across the state. I don't know what Cannon County's main issue is. I recently went to a conference where we talked about how opioids are affecting different communities. Maybe that is a problem in your county. Oftentimes we will finish a community assessment and it'll be like, okay, great, we have this huge scroll of 7,000 problems, ranging from like our electricity bill service fee is too high and we're mad about it, to like there are children juuling in schools. So there'll be a huge list of problems, and we'll filter through and we'll pick what things can we actually change. Maybe the people in this room can grab your hand and walk you to recovery. Maybe we have that asset, but more than likely we don't. So what we can do is enact kind of a cultural change and a different attitude about whatever that problem is. A lot of times coalitions will say kind of like, this year has been a big theme of like ending the stigma around opiates and ending the stigma around addiction. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. A way to inform and educate your community on what is going on and how everybody can be helpful no matter whether you work, no matter what your like sphere of work is. We want you to be able to come to a coalition meeting and leave with some kind of tool to help someone in your community. Even if that is just a phone number, a hug, a handshake, suggesting they go to another meeting, that type of thing. So, there should be, and if you didn't get one, that's okay. I think Pam will help me get these out. There is a form, it's a black and white form that says community assessment on the top. Is there anyone that needs one? It is, I think yours is just a one-pager. Anyone need one?
Oh, I don't want to be mine. Mine has a note on it. A secret note.
It says, make sure Glenn doesn't get it. Okay, so, also if anyone, you can stop me and ask questions, comments, concerns at any point in this. I don't want you to feel like I'm lecturing at you. This first meeting, when I explain what a community assessment is, unfortunately, that's what it is. It's like Sadie stands up here and talks and tries to convince you that we have to figure out what the problem is before we get spread out in a million different directions. So bear with me and just kind of follow along. So the purpose of the community assessment is to help a coalition better understand the community and make data-driven decisions. So we want opinions and facts, and that's going to take a little homework. I think everyone in here probably has some opinions about something. But it's going to take the work of you all bringing back to this coalition meeting some data that you might have in your respective workplace. Maybe you don't deal with that, that's okay. You can bring back some suggestions and some examples and some experiences, really in first-time experiences of kind of what you're seeing in your community as it relates to substance abuse. And the community assessment will happen in 2 meetings. The first meeting will be in what month? The first meeting will be in September. The second meeting will be in October. And it will look like kind of a workshop meeting where what you can expect is you'll come in here, the tables will probably, they will be rearranged a little differently, and it'll be kind of like breakout groups where I'll facilitate some questions and some suggestions, and you'll have the opportunity to work together and almost like, for lack of a better term, you'll kind of word vomit it onto a big notepad. It'll be like a brainstorming session. And then the second part of the meeting, we'll do that again. And then behind the scenes, I'll work with your board to compile all that data and information that we've shared. And they'll come up with a report, a community assessment report. And they'll come back, and probably after Christmas, I want to say January maybe, your board will say, like, here is the result of your community assessment that you all did. This isn't like, what did Sadie and the board come up with? This is your community as you know it. Come back with the results, and they'll say, we've identified together 3 problems, problem A, B, and C. Which one do we want to tackle first? You'll vote on one as a coalition, and then we'll go for it. That's not to say that in the meantime, we aren't taking action, but the community assessment gives us a legitimate platform where we're not pulled in every different direction, and we have focus, whether that's tobacco, marijuana, heroin, methamphetamine. So the first part, that first meeting, and if you have a pen, you can mark this, for that first meeting we have in September, we will probably talk about 1, 2, and 3. You can expect to talk about the description of your county, everything from who lives in it, how they make their money, where they live. Are we urban? Are we rural? Do people make money in a factory? Do they work in the city? What is the kind of age, sex, ethnicity, every bit of demographic information? Is it a farming community? We will talk about the description of the county as we know it, and that kind of establishes a baseline. Because when we have that description, I can say, and work with my team to say, what other counties in the state are similar to this one? What other counties describe themselves in a similar way that Canyon County does, and what are they doing that's working? And you will all kind of brainstorm that together, and you'll share out. The second thing we'll talk about is the history. This will be Canyon County as you know it. How did we get to where we are today? How did we get to, we say we're in an opioid crisis. How did we get to where we are today? Is that because there was a tornado that wiped everything out, nobody had jobs and something like that? Is it there was an influx of doctors here? Is it did we get a big group of people move from one county to another? The whole history of the county as you know it, so we can figure out where we're going to go from here. Then we'll talk about step 3, and usually I like to do step 3 in the first meeting, but it just kind of depends on how far we get. And this is where I call step 3 kind of the uncomfortable step, because that is where we will kind of, for lack of a better term, air out the dirty laundry. If there's a problem in Camden County that you know of, whether it's being reported or talked about or not, we will put it on a big piece of paper for the coalition to see. I'm not going to ask them to publish it in the Courier or anything. But it'll be like, we will identify some social, maybe some economic issues that are existing in Canyon County. And it will be uncomfortable, and we're all going to think that felt terrible. But the next step, which is my favorite step, which is step 4, is where we will put that big list right next to a list of every single resource we have in the county. And we'll start to connect the dots. Maybe there are children not in school, and that is like an underlying issue that's not being addressed. Well, maybe we have someone who works in that field that can kind of give us some insight or ideas as to why that might be happening, or what we as a coalition can do. We'll kind of start to connect the dots of what we think the problems are to what we already have in our toolkit. I think that you'll be surprised. Maybe this area feels small, and sometimes I think rural communities can feel or be told that they are existing in this bubble, in some version of a bubble. The beauty of a bubble is that you learn to survive and to thrive on the things that are around you. So if we can just get the problems on paper and the solutions on paper, a lot of those things are going to marry up. We just maybe haven't all been in a room together to figure out who has a problem and who has a solution. So it'll kind of fit together as a puzzle. And there will be some outliers where we're like, this thing has about 6 resources and this thing only has 1. And that is where we will imagine putting all that stuff into a strainer, kind of shake it out. And that's when we'll get the meat of what falls to the bottom. And maybe that is just that people in the county don't have the education or the awareness around substance abuse. That's a pretty common theme. The news tells you it's a problem, but like, what does that mean for us? And what actually is the problem? Because we kind of just jump on these taglines of opioid crisis. Well, what does that mean for us? How is this crisis affecting the county? And what can we do about it? And then step 5 will happen behind the scenes. Your board and probably a committee of people who have a little extra time and are feeling really passionate about coming up with problem statements will meet, and it'll be like problem statement 1, 2, and 3, come back and vote on a problem statement, and we'll take action. We'll have a plan for the next 12 months of exactly how we're going to take 70 out of 200 students underage drinking to maybe we're going to shoot for 35 out of 100 students doing underage drinking. Does that make sense? I don't want to explain it too simply or make it seem too easy, but also I don't want to overcomplicate it. There's a million little micro things that will come up in conversation, but that is the overall gist of a community assessment. It's less of just a thing to have someone come here and be a speaker and fill the gap, and more of, at this point, your coalition has wheels under the wagon. We've got someone who's willing to like drive the wagon, some people who are ready to push the wagon, but we don't know which direction we want to go in. And this is a really pivotal point for this coalition, because without direction, and I've seen this before just to be honest with you, without direction, people will get off of the wagon. They'll be like, I'm tired of meeting and listening to someone talk, to then go back out in my community and know that my neighbor's using heroin and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't arrest them. I don't have Narcan. I don't even know who to call when their kids are in my yard, like asking for a glass of water type thing. So the community assessment might feel lengthy. It is the most purposeful thing that the coalition does as a startup. It gives us a direction to go in. And that direction will probably change in a couple years, but it gives us a place to go, so we're not just hoping that someone will walk in the door and like tell us what the problem is. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or anything that you need some clarity on?
I'm really liking volunteering, because I feel like that we, as Stones River Recovery, we can play a big part of this, as far as, helping out, the ones that are actually on drugs or alcohol. And we do intercede a lot with the courts. Probation officers are not interact with courts, probation officers. So, this sounds like something good.
Good, thanks. I'll be honest with you, it is going to take work. It is going to take work. If you were expecting kind of a situation where you could come and like chill on your lunch break and leave feeling like, yay, I can just donate canned goods to the food bank and my Camden County is going to be great. This takes work. And I think that you know that. You understand that substance abuse is a problem. You have so many concerned and passionate, driven people in this community. This is my 7th, I call it a grassroots coalition, and I have seen more oomph, if you will, in this little Woodbury area that I totally never thought. I was like, Camden County will get on board, but I didn't expect it with this much ferocity and well-intentioned people. So, you're off to a good start. It fires me up. I mean, I drive 2.5 hours to be here when I could send another team member because I know that you guys are on the way to something bigger than maybe what you are up for or than what you expected. So a couple things just to know as the coalition grows. There will be some, expect the kind of ebb and flow. It does not mean that anyone's doing anything wrong or right. That is the nature of a group dynamic. And it is going to be so important that, just like probably many of your churches or Jim say, like, bring a friend. This is a bring a friend scenario. We can take action in the community with one person, we all know that. But it really validates and legitimizes our work when there are people from every aspect of the community saying, like, that thing is important and I'm gonna show up for it. Whether show up for it means you share something on Facebook, you show up at the meeting, you just call somebody and say, hey, there's a meeting going on. It doesn't, how you contribute to this coalition is not single directional. I don't expect every person to be able to attend every monthly meeting every time. And to be quite frank, if that is the only way you can contribute, you gotta think outside the box. This doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, it just has to be a commitment to your community. And when we identify some of those problem statements, if that's not, maybe we decide that the overall reason why people are becoming addicted to substance is because they are poor. Maybe, like just off the wall. Maybe they're saying people don't have any money, they don't know what to do, so they do drugs. I don't agree with that, but let's just pretend that's what the problem is. And maybe half the room is like, that is not the problem. The real problem is we have this generational, systemic attitude around drugs that we don't know how to fix, and we want to fix it, right? The room can be totally divided. The beauty of a coalition is that it is, I don't know what the words, it can grandma, put the pieces together. It is a coalition, a kind of mecca of different people with different ideas. So a year from now, the coalition could be split with a couple different steering committees. One part of the coalition could be really focused on affecting youth. One part of the coalition could be really focused on affecting kind of the senior citizen population. There is so much room to do really whatever you guys want in this coalition. All you need is time, space, and people who care. And you're here and you do care. So I encourage you to bring someone to those community assessment meetings. If you only come to 2 meetings ever, I guess 3 now, because you've already been to 1. If you never come back, just please come to September and October, because your opinion is critical. If it is just Sadie and Glenn and Pam sitting at the table, I'm going to say the real problem is that the whole world isn't eating whatever that chocolatey bread dessert is I had at your house. Like, I'm going to be like, that's the real issue here. People need more of Pam's dessert. And that's as far as we're going to get. We're going to like make flyers and blah, 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 and wear shirts that say like support Pam's desserts. We need all of you here. Don't leave this up to me, or this is going to be a like dessert escapade. So please show up, bring a friend, and that brings me to my last kind of question I want to pose to you all. And that is, what time, and you don't have to have an answer right now, just be considering, and maybe talk to Glenn and the board and see what they think. What time do you think would be the most effective? We could do kind of a lunch potluck situation, or we could do an evening dinner potluck situation, or maybe one of you is mega rich and you're like, who cares about a potluck? I'm going to cater this event. I would encourage us to do 2 community assessment meetings with food or drink, because we live in this beautiful southern place where food and drink equal comfort, and we're going to cover some topics that you might want comfort at the same time. I'll speak for myself. So maybe be thinking about, would you rather meet in the afternoon or the evening, and also be thinking about who can you bring with you that maybe has an opinion about anything that's going on in Camden County. So that's it, community assessment in a nutshell. If you come up with more questions, ask me. Ask Glenn, ask somebody, phone a friend. There's answers out there and I can get them for you. So thanks. Glenn?
Thank you, Lieutenant Swaney. Certainly appreciate you laying it out, what we're going to do, because I along with Ms. Stacy, have been to a couple of commission meetings, and they were doing just this. It was impressive the way people come in and break up in groups and define problems that put it on the wall, on paper, on the wall. Then they would look at it and start listening to resources. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you get together collectively and do something that benefits your community. This is all our community. Amen. And it's up to us to take it where it's going. We know where it is, and we know where we'd like for it to be. And the only ones that can get us from point A to point B is us. We can't rely on anyone else at all. Lieutenant Swaney, thank you very much.
No problem.
Yes, yes.
Now, I'm a little bit newer to the community. I actually moved down here from Wichita, Kansas, but I came from a community